Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Red Raptor Writes. This isn't a video I expected to make, but Plan A, Amazing Dino World 2, requires Curiosity Stream, and Plan B, Ancient Earth, same deal. After bashing my head against the wall for a few days, I saw a suggestion from this dude here, Lucky Tawakal, to do an Ice Age Christmas special. I mean, unspecified winter holiday with gift giving. 10,000 years before the birth of Jesus, whether you see him as a religious or just historical figure, we had the end of the Ice Age. Yes, amazing segue, Tim. So let's do an Ice Age accuracy review. Before I get started, I should give a disclaimer that despite loving paleontology, I was never particularly interested in this film. My family and I watched it like 2 or 3 times over the past 20 years and never have I had a particularly strong opinion. This series has always just kinda been there. If I could date myself, I've probably watched more Everybody Loves Raymond than Manny the Mammoth. But it's a great idea to revisit Ice Age as both a movie and piece of paleo media. And of course, as with every other movie I talk about, the accuracy itself doesn't impact its value as a movie. You can enjoy something that isn't interested in being scientific. We are discussing a family film after all, so it's not that serious. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's dig this up. If you've seen Ice Age, then you're probably wondering what the heck it got right. For an animated family film, probably not too much effort was put into creating a realistic Pleistocene ecosystem with realistic Ice Age fauna who behave in a plausible manner. Thankfully, we do have some elements to complement. For Ice Age, I want to start off with something positive since I was pleasantly surprised at different creature designs. Yes, of course, they're stylized to be cartoony and goofy looking, which doesn't bother me. Not everything has to be hyper-realistic prehistoric planet CGI. As for what is being communicated through this style, some of it looks pretty good with a few major exceptions who we'll certainly get to. Even the dreaded Ice Age baby isn't the worst thing I've ever seen, even if it looks like someone maxed out the eye width in a character editor. The wacky and diverse fauna of the Pleistocene is captured pretty well here. Manfred represents a good cartoon depiction of a woolly mammoth, the thick brown hair, downward sloping back, fatty bump on the forehead, small ears to maintain body heat. Almost all of it is perfect, except for the human teeth I accidentally uncovered when pausing at this ungodly moment. Diego too is recognizable as a Smilodon. Long sabers, short tail, powerful build. If he didn't keep giving the bedroom eyes every 5 seconds, I might actually like his design. For some godforsaken reason, our saber cat is missing a paw, walking on 3 digits on the front hands instead of 4 like every other cat. So that's one totally pointless, avoidable flaw that any pet owner could have called out. While I was in a nitpicky mood, I started counting the front teeth. Diego's always creepily grinning at me, so why not? Surprisingly enough, the artist actually gave him the correct number of teeth, at least for the incisors, 6 on top, 8 on the bottom. Somehow they got this right, but not the number of paws.
Who are you, who are so wise in the ways of science?
One major plot point I want to cover is that Diego sets up Sid and Manny to waltz right into an ambush from his pack to get a big buffet and revenge on the Ice Age baby. Maybe they were the true heroes. I've gotten requests for a paleomyth on Smilodon pack hunting and a lion-like pride, but I have addressed this before in videos. First of all, it's difficult to prove such a behavior exists, though we can look for clues that point us in that general direction. And secondly, even if we had evidence of social behavior in saber-tooths, that doesn't tell us their exact social structure. The animal kingdom features a wide range of sociality. Even super closely related creatures can vary vastly. Tigers and lions, for example, are 2 separate species within the same genus. Near as close as you can get, but are worlds apart since tigers are mostly solitary. If you've seen me discuss this before on the channel, then you know I think there's a decent chance of social behavior. Maybe not exactly like the prides in Walking with Beasts or the pack shown here, but hey, it's decent speculation. One recent find in Ecuador from 2021 seems to show a family group with 2 subadult siblings along with their mother. We know they're related because the siblings both inherited a rare extra premolar that would be nigh impossible to find in 2 randomly associated individuals. Both cats inherited this trait from their mother, who is represented by an ulna. All this indicates prolonged parental care according to the authors. This family lived together and died together. And who knows, maybe there were others present who weren't fossilized or found, though that's being incredibly speculative. More evidence comes from a Smilodon fatalis specimen found to have hip dysplasia, a genetic condition that causes limping and imbalance and pain. Such a predator couldn't hunt on its own and probably wouldn't have made it to adulthood, so the researchers, Bellisi et al., suggest it was supported by some form of a group. Until Nigel Marven actually makes a time machine, we can't tell exactly how these cats behaved, but what we see in the film is still possible for what we know now, and I would argue supported to some extent. And another win here is how when they're pack hunting, they use ambush predation, which seems to be very much the case. With short, stockier builds, they weren't made for long-distance chases. So, like a lot of cats, they relied on the element of surprise, then attacked in short bursts.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Another point I enjoyed were the humans present and their way of life. Although their character models are a little wonky, looking maybe Neanderthalish, these are surely Homo sapiens at this time and place, which we'll discuss later. It's also obvious, because a neat touch here, the humans have dogs. No other hominid species domesticated the wolf. Such an addition is neat because even during the Ice Age and the Pleistocene, people already owned dogs. The exact divergence of the first doggy dogs and modern gray wolves is thought to have occurred over 30,000 years ago, and then from there went down the road of domestication. That's how long our species have been living and evolving together. Though I don't hear it mentioned often, Native Americans bred them too, well before Europeans arrived. Dogs arrived alongside humans in North America when they crossed the Bering Land Bridge. I'll get more into why I think this is North America later, but these people will become who we know as Native Americans, often referred to as Paleo-Indians. Us audiences get a good look at their camps, with structures supported by the bones of the region's megafauna, all draped in skins. Definitely looks good. In order to attain these materials, of course they have to hunt and kill things, which, yes, we see them do 100%. Heck, the inciting incident for the plot really is Soto and his saber pack attacking the humans as revenge for killing some of their pack members. This causes Ice Age Baby to be lost. The combination of human overhunting, along with climate change as the planet warmed, caused the downfall of many popular Ice Age beasts and any predator whose diet depended on them. It's also worth noting how this tribe, like the animals here, migrates according to the seasons. They go where the food is rather than staying in one spot. For the vast majority of human history, we were hunter-gatherer nomads. Only since 10,000 BC, at the start of the Neolithic Revolution, did people form permanent settlements where they engaged in agriculture. And even then, that began in the Fertile Crescent, as opposed to pre-Columbian America. Eventually, you would get impressive civilizations in both the Old and New Worlds, but not yet. Nicely done, Ice Age. Lastly for this section, we need to talk about one of the strangest coincidences I've seen in paleontology. The filmmakers behind the movie created a fictional saber-toothed squirrel, Scrat, who we've all grown to know and love, as he sigma grinds for that acorn, even in the most perilous of circumstances. At the time, this was a totally fictional animal made up just to be funny. Strangely enough, in 2011, a similar looking mammal was described, Chronopio dentiacutus. Despite the superficial resemblance, this was not an actual squirrel or even a placental mammal, rather belonging to the extinct South American lineage Meridiolestida. Here in the late Cretaceous 96 million years ago, they wouldn't have run into Smilodon or mammoths, but the fearsome Giganotosaurus instead. Rather than pursuing the long sought after acorn, Chronopio was probably more interested in feasting on bugs. So even though the inclusion of Scrat was not scientific at all. It is cool how diverse and spectacular the fossil record is, that even wildly speculative cartoons can become reality.
See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve.
One of the best scenes in Ice Age comes when Manny observes cave paintings of him and his family who are hunted by the humans. Or maybe it's just a similar family he's projecting himself onto. Either way, it's an excellent moment of visual storytelling that gives us audiences profound insights into the character and why he is the way he is once we meet him. Now, a predator-prey relationship is well documented through cave paintings and other forms of Ice Age art. We also know their tusks were used for homemaking, and humans worked with their ivory to form tools. All this is awesome in the animation, and awesome according to our knowledge of human-mammoth interactions. A line from Sid in this scene did leave me curious when he quipped how cave paintings never depict ground sloths. Then it hit me. I've never seen this either, so is it true? Are there no sloth depictions? Maybe back in 2002 this was the case. However, in the years since then, one particular painting from the Colombian Amazon has been discovered and studied by scientists that may actually show some species of giant ground sloth and its baby. Sure, we're used to seeing horses, bison, and mammoths, but now we might be able to add sloth to the list. You've been done justice, Sid. Even if I did like some of the goofy interpretations of prehistoric life, not all of them work for me. This is especially true with two recurring enemies, the brontodeers. They don't come with labels, but it seems like one is a megacerops, while the other is an embolotherium, judging by their headgear. At first glance, I was fine with them. That was, until my eyes saw that stupid horn above their heads.
What? It's just an ordinary crabby. Oh my goodness!
I have no idea why Blue Sky's character artist glued them on. Maybe they wanted the brontodeers to read more rhino, as if audiences were too dumb to tell already. The end result though is it looks like a Majungatolus was getting a little too friendly with their moms. Their scenes were okay though, aside from having the worst features on screen. While I'm on the subject, these two are also out of place and out of time. Now, it's never explicitly stated when or where Ice Age takes place. Scrat's ending is stated to be 20,000 years after the events of the movie, but there's no confirmation for when that scene is, so we can't know what year it was 20,000 years before this. He is basically an omnipotent, omnipresent, time-traveling deity who single-handedly causes unfathomable mayhem upon the earth, meaning it's hard to use his escapades for a frame of reference. Whatever, I guess we're just sometime in the Pleistocene. Now, where the heck we are? Judging by much of the New World fauna, this is where I'm tempted to go, even if this would cause many problems as well. Back to the brontodeers, Megacerops did roam what is now the Upper Great Plains region in North America a whopping 34 million years ago, making these two honorary members of the Minutemen. Embolotherium lived in a similar time, though in Central Asia. Macrokenia makes a guest appearance, belonging to an extinct order of South American ungulates, Litopterna, and you should already see the problem. South American.
It says here they're only available in South America. What? South America!
To make matters worse, Macrokenia are portrayed as absolute units that would make even Nikocado blush. Wait, what's that? I can't use that joke anymore?
Damn!
Many xenarthrans are present as well in our glacial northern regions of the continent. Xenarthra is a still surviving bizarre clade of mammals that includes anteaters, armadillos, glyptodonts like our Dodocuris here, as well as the living and extinct sloths like Sid. This group originated in South America about 60 million years ago, yet were able to spread into the north during the Great American Interchange that also allowed northern creatures to make their way across to the south. While the Xenarthrans did survive in North America, probably not this far north. As for the smallest member of our makeshift herd, when did Roshan and other humans even make it to the Americas? Should they be present? Well, numbers have varied from different archaeological finds like 14,000-year-old poop to studying climate patterns to see when migration across Beringia would have been feasible. This provides a window between 25 and 16,000 years ago. Earlier numbers would fit nicely with the idea that Scrat gets thawed in the present, so that's not too bad. It seems to line up quite nicely. One admittedly amusing scene includes a dodo bird colony protecting their lucrative melon stash from our protagonist and Ice Age baby. If you've seen my recent paleomyth on the dodo, then you should already know how little sense this scene makes. We've seen some out-of-place characters, but they're probably the worst offender. These fools are found patrolling the icy northern reaches of the world and going extinct during the Pleistocene, when this couldn't be further from the truth. Wrong! If you watched my recent upload, then you know that the real animal came from a tropical island in the Indian Ocean, Mauritius. Of course, they didn't die off 20,000 or more years ago, instead perishing far more recently at the end of the 1600s after Dutch settlers arrived with several invasive species. Habitat loss, while also getting continuously spawn killed by pigs and rats, caused these birds to go the way of the dodo. Though they're played up for laughs, this flightless bird wasn't really as dumb as we joke about, with intelligence likely comparable to other extant pigeons, considering that they were pigeons themselves. Let me not spoil too much of my own video though, go check it out if you want to learn more. So even if this scene is extremely flawed scientifically, it is one of my favorites in the entire movie, causing lots of genuine, unironic laughter because, again, being inaccurate doesn't automatically make it worse, especially when the flaws are being played up for laughs. Credit where credit is due though, dodos did eat fruit, not quite watermelons on Mauritius, though I'm sure a dodo would value a watermelon if it ever saw one. Next up, Diego is repeatedly referred to as a tiger, which hurts my soul a little more every time. At first, it can be chalked up to Sid just being his usual dumb self, until one of the bronze deers makes the same mistake, so it's not just him. If you're watching a paleontology video like this, then you should already know, hopefully, but just in case, Smilodons are not tigers. Tigers are cats that belong to the genus of big cats, Panthera, species Tigris. Saber-tooths belong to another extinct branch of the cat family tree, the Machairodonts. So, no, these were cats, but not tigers. Before we close this video and actually spend time with our families, I finally have an excuse to discuss the confusing world of sloths because this subject still hurts my head. All of Sid's extant relatives are bizarre arboreal species from Central and South America that are notorious for their modest speeds to say the least, each belonging to the superorder Folivora. Today's varieties come in the form of two-toed and three-toed sloths, so you would think these climbing critters simply branched off from one another, as one group lost a toe while the other retained three. Then the ground sloths are their own separate lineage.
Allosaurus had never seen such bullshit before.
Sloth phylogeny is far more confusing. Rather than having a straightforward scenario, instead, both clades began as ground-dwelling giants. On one side were beasts like Paramylodon, while on the other was Megatherium and its close relatives. Offshoots from both ends of this family tree, convergently or independently, evolved to a slow life in the trees. Once all the ground sloths went extinct, perhaps as recently as the Bronze Age, the only surviving Folivorans were the small climbers from both sides. So even though these were just the weird sloth spin-offs, since they're the only living examples today, these are the ones we immediately think of. Now, myself and others have wondered, what type of sloth is Sid? His anatomy isn't great, with a hammerhead and the gait of a human. However, we can still use a few clues. Sid's present presumably in North America, which helps a lot since most species lived further south. And considering his smaller size than the likes of Megatherium, the closest candidate we have, according to the researchers at the La Brea Tar Pits, is the Sashta ground sloth, even with tufts of fur found that resemble Sid's coat. Though his model isn't exactly paleo accurate, a few hints do allow us to narrow down which type of sloth he is, intentionally or by happy accident. Mission accomplished, boys. Returning to Ice Age for the first time in a long time, I honestly thought it was pretty good. Nothing to rave about or launch a never-ending animated franchise over, yet I'm still glad I revisited it. Some good laughs, some nice moments, and a nice story with amusing characters carries it over the finish line. When it comes to following the science though, we run into some major problems. Audiences are stuck with some janky designs, misplaced inhabitants, and perpetuated misconceptions about prehistoric life. For that, I give Ice Age a mediocre C-. As a film, this was enjoyable, but as an educational program, well, this wasn't trying to be educational. Not to take away from it, but much of what was shown doesn't hold up to scientific scrutiny, and that's okay. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like, subscribe, and to have a very Merry Christmas. See you next time.